The best of the morning to you. This is Monday with Friday, preparing you for a better week ahead. Over the next weeks, I shall share with some adjustments for you, my more diverse viewership, a paper entitled What Racial Justice Looks Like, which I presented at the recently concluded General Council of the Baptist World Alliance, which I referenced last week. Racial prejudice and racism are social and moral issues. For me, and many of you viewers, they are also biblical, theological, and missional concerns. I hope that those of you who don't care for the theological perspective but understand the moral and social implications of the matter would stay with me to the end. Both racial prejudice and racism are frequently and widely used as political tools. Many religious people take the position that because a matter is labeled political, it automatically falls outside of their religious concern, their social responsibility, and their community and national usefulness. I vehemently disagree. True religion does not avoid justice issues. Christian people especially, that religion I know well, and many versions of which, some corrupted, that America and some other parts of the world know well, should understand social justice as part of the total justice enclosed in the Bible that too many people miss when they fail to properly interpret the Bible and their faith. The basic studies I have done of Islam, Hinduism, and a handful of other world religions persuade me that the great religious texts, including the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, and others, when properly interpreted, shall be found to care deeply about justice for all. Politics, derived from the Greek words polis and politica, means city and affairs of the people, respectively. To address the people's affairs, which includes distributing the city's resources among people, power, authority, and mechanisms for fair, just, and equitable distribution are required. Politics might therefore be defined as the intersection of people, power, and resources. By this definition, before politics becomes partisan, it is communal, meant to employ power for the common good. When politics abuses power and disrupts the common good, injustice begins, then abounds, and religious people, including the church, cannot remain silent or indifferent. Imperialism and colonialism are forms of political power that have consistently poured out injustice upon people of color. History teems with instances of political power from white global north leveraged to inflict injustice upon black and colored citizens of the global south, as Europe colonized Asia, Africa, Central and South America, inflicting injustices on these and on the indigenous people they found in North America and the Caribbean. Jill Lepore, in her book These Truths, offers in her first 2 chapters a lengthy expose of the intertwining of political abuse of power, blessed by religion, as a two-headed monster that attended the founding of America and Caribbean colonies. Eric Williams, the late Caribbean historian and Trinidad Tobago Prime Minister, makes these same observations in many of his publications, including Capitalism and Slavery. Neither of these 2 authors is as extensively focused on the ugly tripartite union between racial justice, political power, and religion as is Robert Jones in his book White Too Long, The Legacy of White Supremacy in American Christianity. In the American South, nearly 5,000 black humans, the number would be likely much larger if we had good records, were lynched by white people, many of whom were respectable church members. James Cone, that prominent black American theologian, in his book The Cross and the Lynching Tree, portrays the crucified Jesus in the 1st century as the first of those 5,000 lynches in the 18th and 19th centuries in America. These 3 authors are among many who reveal the palpable relationship between Christianity, or some version thereof, political power, and racial injustice upon generations of American blacks. This kind of injustice isn't limited to America, and it certainly isn't limited to the Christian religion as well, as we shall see in the coming weeks. Wherever injustice is found, it awaits actions of restorative justice. And what is justice? For me, justice involves appropriate application and sharing of power between people, the fair distribution of resources among people, and the equitable recognition of the image of God in people. Justice always flows from the powerful to the weak, never the weak to the strong, for justice is about power and its appropriate distribution thereof. If justice results from the appropriate sharing and application of power upon people, the fair distribution of resources among all people, and the equitable recognition of God's image in all people, then injustice is the abuse of God's people through the abuse of power, the abuse and manipulation of resources, and the denigration of people's dignity and humanity through harmful policies and abused power anywhere it may be found. Evidence abounds in nations across the world that resources are inequitably distributed along racial lines, or where certain social and governing metrics and policies determine that an ethnic group deserves less value and is viewed as less than or subhuman to the others. Now keep those definitions in mind, because next week I shall begin to look at snapshots of racial injustice in various parts of the world and offer a perspective of what racial justice should look like for each picture. I am Michael Friday, and your week just got better. Love your neighbor, however different from you they might be. I'll see you again next week. Happy Monday, all the way to Friday.